I'm not necessarily here to, to tell you the rights and the wrongs of being a parent, the do's and the don'ts. Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. How are you guys all doing today? I hope you're doing well. So also welcome back to the second part to my series around parenting. In my last video that I done in part 1, we focused on ages between 0 and 7, sharing my life experiences, sharing with you some tips as well that I found beneficial, and I'm hoping you guys found something very beneficial there as well, something motivating and elevating as well from that video. In fact, I hope all these videos around parenting does that, as I said previously in my videos, I'm not necessarily here to, to tell you the rights and the wrongs of being a parent, the do's and the don'ts, because in all reality, every parent has their way of doing things. I can only just share with you my experience, and hopefully, if my experience has been beneficial to you, then hopefully you would be able to take something away from there. So, in this particular segment here, we are going to be looking at the ages between 7 and 11. So, looking at sort of this age bracket between 7 and 11, it is a very trying age, and it's a very trying age in the sense as in they're going to school at that time, they're having a lot of external influences, a lot of external factors that will come in, and you as a mother or as a parent has to look at that, has to address it. So I guess some of the experiences that I will probably be focusing on would be really around the school factors, the external factors, and how that was for me, and what experiences I got from that. And hopefully some sort of tips and points, from some of these experiences. But with that came quite a lot of challenges as well. So predominantly children who are white attend that school, and obviously my kids are black, and they have natural hair. I've never put any sort of perm, any form of relaxer in their hair. I don't intend to. I'm really teaching them on how to sort of manage their hair. For them to, I'm also teaching them and trying to educate them on how to getting to know their hair. It's not all about putting a piece of weave in the hair or something, or putting some relaxer in the hair, but getting to know your own hair and understanding what your hair needs and at what stage your hair needs that. So I've been sort of educating them on that anyways, and so anyway, kind of just moving on from that, they've started going to school. Obviously they've got their natural hair. The ratio of sort of black children to white kids is like 1 to 50. About 1 to 50. That sounds about right, I think. And it was a very interesting time. I would certainly hear about comments about certain things that kids may have said in the playground, or may have just said, around the children's hair, or comments about the hair which aren't very sort of pleasant comments, comments around their skin complexion. And I would I was always the mother that was very keen to hear about it. I wanted to know everything about everything. I wanted to know everything about what was going on, what was said, how who said what, and whether, if anything was actually done about it, if it was actually reported. And in most of the cases, my kids didn't necessarily report it. They would come home and discuss it, and that's how I would find out about it. But I was, I was a very proactive mum. I was very active, ensure that I was reaching out to the teachers, reporting these incidences, and just really making sure that something's done about it. I would. I remember there was a time I spoke to one of the teachers and made a complaint, and then about a child making a racial comment towards my daughter, and she turned around and she was like, "Oh, these are kids nowadays. That's just how they are. I wouldn't really think anything of it. I don't really." Well, she was just trying to play it down. Basically, she was saying, she doesn't think. Oh yes, that was it. She said, "Oh, I don't think that the children, the child meant it in that way. They're just kids." And I was like, "Yeah, they're just kids." But at the end of the day, the comments are quite shocking. The comments are adult comments, and these comments are clearly being heard from somewhere. Okay, kids just don't wake up one day and decide to want to, decide to just want to make a racist comment. Okay, they hear people around them. They hear parents, perhaps making these comments, or family members making some of these comments, and that's why they think it's an okay comment to make. So it does need to be addressed. And from my understanding, it is a safeguarding issue, and if you're not taking it that seriously, then I'm going to have to make a formal complaint about it, and your name will be all over it. So she wasn't very pleased with that, as you can imagine, but she took action. She did register it as a safeguarding issue. And it was formally dealt with, and parents were being contacted about it as well. And I was very hot on that. I was very hot on that, because for me, I don't know if you guys remember, in my last video, I spoke very much around my vision board. Okay, so I've got my vision board, and this is how I would like my child to be. This is how I'm hoping my child will aspire to be. And here we are in this incident where my child is now being kind of stripped off some of the positivity and the confidence I'm trying to instill within that child. And just over one incident, or just over a few incidences that's been happening in school. So I had to be there for my child. I had to be there for that. I work full time. I worked full time previously as well, at that time, but I would drop everything just to be there, just to make sure the right action is being taken, just to make sure things are being addressed properly. I wanted my children to feel safe going to school. I wanted them to feel confident that something was actually being done about it. I didn't want them to feel distracted or to feel or to have doubts and question who they were when they went to school. because everything I imagined and I've envisioned on my vision board it needs to come into fruition. And pretty much what was happening was pretty much the opposite of what I intended. So that was quite worrying for me. So I had to step up. I had to be active. I had to be proactive, and I think that really did go very well with the kids. They became a lot more confident. When things happened in school, they were quite happy to come home and discuss it with me, which I thought was such a relief, because as I said, at first it would just be me kind of like hearing things and then, picking it up from there. Overhearing things and then picking it up from there. But after a few incidences, and they realised that, oh gosh, Mummy is really interested in all of this, isn't she? So they were quite keen to come home and just tell me what struggles or challenges that they were having. And I loved that. I absolutely loved it, because I wanted to be there for my kids. I wanted to be there for them at those times. I didn't want them to go to school feeling intimidated, or even come home questioning, who they were and why their skin is slightly darker than, or a lot darker than another child's, or why their hair is so different. Yes, we had the conversations, but I would certainly turn it into a positive, saying, your hair is beautiful. Yes, flaunt your hair, flaunt your fro. You go, girl. Those are the things that I done for the kids. And as I said, I done it with an intent. So I think that in itself was important. Really being proactive, being active. Being able to write a complaint if need be, call in a meeting if need be. That was me. That was me. Another thing as well that I certainly started doing with the children was, particularly within that age bracket, was and probably quite earlier on, I would say, so it's sort of around 7, 8, was that I would certainly be telling them that, listen, you are not followers, you are leaders. You are a leader. You are the leader of the pack. You're the leader of your life, and you're the leader of the pack. You may not have people following you, but you have to see yourself as a leader. It's important to see yourself as a leader. And I instill this within them from a very, very young age, as I said, from about sort of 7, 8. I would always tell them that you're a leader, you're not a follower. And the reason why I told them that was because they had, groups of friends, and you would always have one friend that was a leader. Everyone would kind of rush to that person, follow that person. But for me, it was quite important that I taught the kids that there's nothing wrong in having friends. But don't let your friends, number one, lead you down the wrong path. Don't let them be domineering over you. And certainly certainly see yourself as a leader. If you see yourself as a leader, you won't allow these two things to happen. So again, that was another thing. And I know that my kids are not necessarily leaders in that sense. I know that they won't be the one to lead a group, of people. I know that it's not within their character in that sense. But I do know that they certainly did not fall shy. They didn't fall short from being a leader. So what I'm saying is, this is a bit of kind of psychology. You tell somebody something for so long to the point where they believe that. However, so they see themselves as a leader. They might not be actively acting as a leader, but every action, every decision, every way they see themselves, even the way they come across has leadership qualities. And that's really what I wanted my kids to have. I wanted them to have leadership qualities. I wanted them to, they might not necessarily be a leader, but they're falling just below that leadership quality, or just borderline of that leadership quality, but they ain't following nobody. They ain't following nobody. And that was so important for me. So important. So, and we all know how much friends can have an influence and have an impact in your life, especially as a child. Not necessarily within that age bracket, but for me, I felt like if I let it go on, then what's going to happen in secondary school? What's going to happen when the stakes are higher in secondary school? So instilling that positivity within my girls at that very early age was absolutely superb. And they've grown up believing that. They've grown up knowing that, okay, I need to choose my friends wisely. I need to certainly look at certain friends who don't necessarily just want to be friends with me. They're friends with me for other intentions. And also being prepared to walk away from toxic friends, because I really hate to say this, but kids within that age bracket, they start to show some type of toxicity. Oh God, I don't know why I tried to pronounce that word, but you guys know what I'm talking about. They try to show that type of toxicity at such an early age. And it's quite shocking. It's quite worrying, but they do. They really do. And probably it's because some, parents may not have called them out on it, may not have addressed it with them. They just think it's cute. Oh, look at them being the boss, boss girl, boss lady, whatever you want to call her or him. But it's, it is something that I've certainly tried to instill within my kids, that, you have to be prepared to walk away. You've got to be prepared to walk away if you think this is wrong. So that was another thing. Another one was certainly the fact that I didn't allow my kids to go out and play, in the public area. So kids, they obviously, my kids have, at the time, they had a lot of friends living in the area, as you do. And some children might just want to hang out with their friends, perhaps in the playground or just out in the greenery or whatever. And I was quite adamant that my children wouldn't sort of go out, hang out, or go to like sort of these playground activity centers, or what is it called, playgroup activity centers or something, purely because of the fact that I do not want anybody out there bringing up my children. You see, the streets can bring up the kids. Okay, you've got your way of bringing up your child at home, and then you've got the street way of bringing up your child. Okay, and every child is different. Every child has a different level of influence, and I did not want that to. I wasn't ready to test that out. I wasn't ready to put my kids out there to see how much influence they were going to have by being out there. That wasn't going to happen. So I really and truly didn't allow the kids to play out. Didn't allow them to hang out with. I mean, they hung out with friends. They hung out with friends at home. They would have play dates and stuff like that. I have a massive piece of greenery just outside the house where I can visibly see them. And, some kids will hang out there and just talk and perhaps maybe have some type of outdoor games out there. I was prepared to have that, but to go to a park, to hang out like for the whole day, maybe just to come home for like lunch or dinner or something, and then go back out again to go and play with whoever. No, wasn't going to happen. Wasn't going to happen. I was just cautious, and I was conscious about the fact that, kids at that age, they get to see a lot of things when they're out there. They get to hear a lot of things. That's when swearing comes into it. That's when, speaking in all manner of different ways that you probably wouldn't imagine comes into it. They become so much more exposed to a lot of behaviors out there. And, children need to be protected. They need to be protected from these things. They need to be protected to the point, the way I see it, is that they need to be protected to the point where they are now capable of making a decision on what is right and what is wrong. But to expose them so earlier on at that age, for me, it's a massive no-no. So that was certainly one of my rules. That was certainly one of my guides. Being a parent, that I was certainly going to adopt, was to ensure that, they just don't go out there, hanging out with friends, hanging out with people. But yeah, very happy for them to come home and have play dates and things like that. Another thing that I found as well was that my kids loved, and they still do, arguing. Oh my God. At one point I was like, do these kids, like, do they hate each other? I'm joking. It's mad. The arguments is crazy. It's non-stop, and everyone thinks that they're right. I'm right. What's all this about? It's just draining. It's draining for you as a mum. It's draining for anyone around you. But I found a way around that. I found a way around it. Right. With me, I can be very objective, and I think it's probably partly to do with my work. I have to be very objective with the line of work that I do. So I can, I've learned really to be, over the years, because it's taken practice. So I've learned to be really, really objective with the girls. So they'll come to me and they'll say, oh, X done this, and then the other one comes and say, well, why done that? And their story is so touching, so heartfelt. You feel for them. You're just like, wow. They're crying buckets of tears and everything, and you're just like, oh, I'm so sorry. But you know what? Both of you are in the wrong, because you shouldn't have done that in the first place. You shouldn't have done this. And you should have told me about that. So you see, coming from a neutral perspective, I think it's extremely important, because if you're not coming from that sort of neutral perspective and you're kind of taking sides, it's not going to go down very well. Because eventually one child will just think that you hate them, and the other the other child and they feel that the other child's been favored. So you've got to call each behavior out for what it is, and say, well, you're just as much to blame because of X, Y, and Z, because of the fact that you didn't even, you didn't mention it in the first place. Yes, this person done something wrong, but you should have mentioned it to me. I shouldn't have let it drag on. Call it out for what it is, but not necessarily, you took this from that person, so give it back. You shouldn't have done that. Well, why did you take it from that person in the first place? So you see, in every sort of in every argument, I'm trying to educate them on morals. So it's not about you snatching this away from that person, therefore you're not sharing, and that's not very nice. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Let's find out exactly why you're not doing that, and then then it gets to the point where we're now saying, okay, so now because someone's done something wrong to you, you feel that it's okay for you to do something wrong to them. So you're fighting fire with fire. And that, for me, was how I was able and still able to instill good morals within the kids. So it's not kind of just active. It's not disciplining what the activated incident, but it's going beyond that. I found that really beneficial, going beyond that and actually disciplining the morals behind it, the intentions behind it, things that will make them a better part of society, make them make fairer and more balanced judgments as they get older in life. Kids slip up all the time. They're kids. That's what they are. And that's why I kind of mentioned in my last video, consistency is a huge key, because you're going to find yourself saying the same thing 150 times in one day. Literally, you'd be tearing your hair out saying the same thing and be like, what other ways should I say this? Another thing as well that I found quite beneficial as well is that when I found my kids having when they had like a lot of sort of attitudes that needed addressing, I would always get them to write down almost like a bucket list of what they want to change about themselves. So what do you want to change? Based on this whole, session we've just had, based on this sermon I've just given you, what would you like to change about yourself? Put the ball back in their court. Let's see how activated their brain is around their behavior, and tell them to write down what they would like to change. I've had particularly my middle child, and even the last one as well. I've had them put down a list of things that they would like to change and say, yes, I don't want this, don't want that, but okay, great. Now put that up on your wall, and even frame it if need be, and look at that every day and say, and hopefully that will just remind you of what you need to change on a daily basis. And sometimes if we, if they're kind of caught slipping or whatever it is, then we go right back to, to that. We go right back to the Genesis and say, right, so here it is. This is what you wrote the other day. What have you achieved? What would you like to change? What would you like to amend? And it's so nice in that sense, because they're able to change what they need to change, review what they need to, and also question their behaviors. Like, okay, why am I still doing this? What's causing me to still doing that? Okay, well, let's see if I can change something within this list that can help me with that. So it's kind of just proactive learning. A tip I learned from a book that I've read, I'm still reading now, called Coaching for Performance. So I kind of use my kids as a little bit of an experiment for that, but it works. It really, really does work. Another thing was the talking back. Oh my God, has anyone experienced talking back? It was a nightmare. My kids spoke, they talked back about literally everything. If you say one thing, they say something else. You say something else, they say something else. It's almost like they wanted to actually end the conversation. They would say things and you would just be like, you need to keep quiet now. You need to keep quiet now. We're done. This conversation is done. And at first, I didn't actually even recognize it. I didn't even think of it in any way. I just used to, I would just answer the question. I would answer to the statement that they made. Or if they had a question, I would answer to that. Actually, they never really much had a question. When kids talk back, they tend to talk back with a statement, and it's a very closed statement. And it's a statement inviting you to almost like continue, but it's still a very closed statement. Does that make sense? And yeah, I just got swooped into it. I was just like, well, okay, I'll respond, And I realized that slowly but surely I was losing control. I was losing control. I was losing grip. In some ways, I was losing respect as well from the kids. And that was really concerning. And so I just had to, I just thought, well, hang on a minute. I need to call this out for what it is. You're talking back to me, and I find that rude. It has nothing to do with what you're saying. It has nothing to do with the content of what you're saying, whether if it's true, whether if it's, you got a good point, whether you don't. That's not what I'm looking at. You need to stop talking back. I will create a space for us to have a conversation, but when I'm telling you off about something, when I'm telling you to do something, I don't necessarily expect the talking back. And I would normally associate it with some type of punishment, like obviously the naughty step was obviously one of the biggest ones. So definitely going to sit on that naughty step was a massive thing, and that was associated to talking back. I had to look at that as a separate issue and deal with that as a separate issue, because if I didn't deal with that as a separate issue, what you tend to find is that you're dealing with some of the activated incidences which come and go. They all come and go, don't they? She said, he said, okay, well, you go and say sorry. You go and sit on the naughty step. You do this, you do that. So those issues, they come and go effectively. But the talking back of it is down to respect. It's down to seeing your mother or your father as an authoritative figure. Part of my growing up was in Nigeria, and obviously my I come from an African family, so talking back is not something that you're really supposed to do. It's a sign of disrespect. And for me, respect was a huge thing. I wanted my children to definitely have that respect for me, and certainly see me as like almost like as an authoritative figure. But obviously, I'm their mum. I still love them. The love is still there. I still give them kisses and smooches and hugs, and I still play around with them. But I wanted them to definitely know that, okay, there is a line here that I'm drawing, okay? And the line here is that you do not talk back to me. I did make it very clear, though, to the girls that I'm happy to listen to everything that's been said when the argument stops. So I was able to differentiate the two, and differentiating the two was extremely important. And having the two differentiated was important to the point where now they're teenagers, they don't do much of that anymore. And that's helped tremendously. Because when they're teenagers, it's a completely different ball game. Completely different ball game. You know. So within that age bracket, between that ages of between 7 and 11, between the age bracket we're looking at now, I found it so important. I didn't even know how important it would be by the time they got to that teenage stage, but I realized how important it is now, because I found it so important just to address the talking back, but also to create that space where they can have that conversations with me, but they can have that conversations when things have calmed down, and then we can all think clearly and we can think properly around the issues. So yeah, that was really trying. That was trying, and I didn't actually pick up on it, you know, for a little while, and I just found myself just kind of getting sucked into this conversations, and you know, or some of these comments, and you know, kids are very good at guilt tripping you, you know, but it's all about addressing those comments in the right time, in the right space, and but addressing the actual issues around you know, talking back, which potentially leads to being rude and being disrespectful. Addressing that straight away and making sure you're sending out that clear message that this is, you know, this is not something I'm going to tolerate. It just made life easier. It made life a lot easier for me. You know, made life a lot easier for us in the house. You know, and yeah, it was definitely God's wisdom. Just being able to pick up on that and to act on it as well. So definitely talking back is a huge thing within that age group, within that age bracket. It's massive. It's just it's just a whole new ball game. So yeah, you know, consistency was definitely one. It was definitely important to be consistent, because without that, there was no point. And just ensuring that you do create that space, you do create that opportunity to have that conversation with your child, or you know, with the children, for me was extremely important. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. It's a bit of a long one, I know, but I'm hoping that you guys enjoyed it just as much as how I enjoyed speaking on it. And I will see you in my next video, where we will be looking at the ages between 11 and 16. Now, the teenage years, well, okay, not officially teenage as such, because teenage years start from 13, but they're in secondary school. They're getting there. And yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a very interesting one. As I said to you, it's a whole new ball game. It's a whole new way of parenting. So I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for tuning in. Take care. Bye.